Good morning, everybody, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Tracy Rogers, and I manage our community. Today, I am here with Rubaiyat Khan and her team to talk about text editing, get some feedback from you. She's going to share a quick little presentation, and then we really want to open it up, get feedback, questions. There's 6 of them here in the room with me today, so they are your go-to experts. A couple housekeeping items before I turn the floor over to them. One is, if you have any questions or comments, just go ahead and throw it in either the chat or the Q&A at the bottom, and we'll be sure to get those answered. And then also, this will be recorded, so if you want to rewatch it at any point or share it with anyone, we'll send it out and post it in the community. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to the team.
Hi everyone, my name is Rubaiyat Khan. I'm the product manager for formatting in Tableau. Today we want to talk a little bit about text editing in Tableau. However, if you have any formatting related general questions, we're happy to talk to you about that as well. So we'll just go around the table and introduce the rest of the team. Do you want to go first?
Sure. Hi, I'm Jason Weil. I'm a senior software engineer here on the formatting team. I've been with Tableau for over 2 years, and I'd be happy to answer any questions you have today.
Hi, I'm Logan McNamara. I'm a software engineer on the formatting team, and I've been here for about 19 months now.
I'm Paul Bartholomew, development manager on formatting, been at Tableau for 2.5 years.
I'm Shahaf Nuriel. I'm a developer on the formatting team, and I've been at Tableau almost 3 years.
Hi, I'm Caroline Balkett. I'm the test manager for the formatting team. I've been at Tableau for 8 years.
Cool. All right, so I'm going to share my screen so that we can all take a quick look at the new feature that's coming out in 17 towards the end of this year from the formatting team. So can you?
Yes, please.
Okay. All right. So as you know, today in Tableau, there is really no way to edit text objects on the web. So our team is currently working on enabling this capability. So instead of having to download your workbook and opening it up in Tableau Desktop to be able to modify a text on, say, a dashboard text object, you can just do it directly on the web. So the way you do it is go to Edit, Online, and then you can just double click on a text object on the dashboard and you have all of the capabilities that Tableau Desktop has today on this. So you can change the font, you can change the size of the font, you can change the styling to bold, italics, or underline, you can change the color of the text, or you can change the alignment. You're able to insert different types of objects like parameters or a sheet name, workbook name, full name of the user. You can also clear all of the formatting that is in the text. You can then also use the Tableau undo button to make to undo any of the changes that you have made. So this is our first this is the first thing that we're going to do for text editing in Tableau. In the future, we do want to extend the capability to other places in addition to dashboard text objects. So a couple of things that we'd love to hear from you guys today is that where else would you find text editing on the web useful other than dashboard text zone so that we can prioritize those items? And then the second thing we also want to talk about is when we want to add more expressiveness to text, what kind of stuff would you want to see? So when I say more expressiveness, I mean things like the ability to insert an image or a logo in a text zone, or the ability to add bulleted lists or numbered lists or tables. So what kind of more expressiveness functions would you like to see in both web and desktop? So those are the 2 things we're hoping to get your feedback on today.
Awesome. Well, this looks really cool. I know I'm excited about it internally. We don't have any questions quite yet, so I'm just going to grab a couple of things from the Ask Me Anything. And again, everyone, if you want to type in some feedback about those 2 questions that Rubaiyat just asked, and/or send other feedback or questions, please do. So one thing that came up in the Ask Me Anything was the ability to remove all for borders and lines within a dashboard. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So today we have a feature called workbook formatting. You can go to it by going to Format Workbook, and that feature allows you to do a lot of bulk formatting. So you can, for example, turn all grid lines off. You can turn all grid lines on. So we do provide you some capabilities of formatting across entire workbooks. This is a really good idea, and we will definitely consider this for the future. We don't have this quite yet, the ability to remove all borders, but we definitely appreciate the feedback, and it kind of goes well with the workbook formatting feature we do have today. So definitely something we want to consider for the future. Do you guys have anything to add on this? Got it.
So we got one question, and I'm actually not sure either, but from Tyler King is, he would really like to be able to reference measures and dimensions in dashboard text boxes.
Tyler, could you elaborate a little bit more? What do you mean by referring a dimension or a measure? So I'm assuming something like this, is it you open up the box and then you're able to insert from this menu? Is that, we really appreciate a use case of what you want to do with this.
He said exactly what you just said. So when editing a label or title on a sheet, you can have a variable inside those brackets, the caret brackets.
Okay, so say for example, if the dimension you want to enter is, so let's just go back over here.
Was that dimensions and measures?
So let's say you enter order date. Which order date would you want to see there? Because what I'm trying to understand is, do you want to see a value from the dimension or the measure? Do you want to see an aggregate? Excuse me.
What was the name of the?
Or just the name of the dimension or the measure, like order date?
Yeah, while he types in, maybe he'll give us a little more information there. Let me ask you about another question that we have is the ability to, so parameters and filters you can format separately.
Yeah.
But I know there's a lot of, oftentimes people want to format their filters differently per dashboard.
Yeah.
Is that something that's on the roadmap or something that you can add a little bit of color to?
Oh, yeah, thank you for that question, Tracy. So we have heard this from customers before, and it's definitely on our radar. We do understand the need to be able to select some number of filters or some number of parameters and have them look one way versus the others look a different way. So definitely something that we are aware of. We would like to, at some point, invest in this in the future. I don't have a current timeline or an ETA for this yet, but we really appreciate this feedback from the community. That's something they would like to see. So definitely something we have in our.
Well, I have just a question for each of you. What is your favorite formatting, text formatted thing that you can do currently in Tableau?
I love that you can match your labels to your mark colors when you have them on like a vid. I think that's really nice. It makes things a lot simpler. It's easier to use that instead of a legend if you want.
Would you be able to show that, Rubiat? I'm not sure if everyone knows how to do that.
I think that's a great idea. Why don't I pass this on to you, Shaf? And do you like desktop?
Yes. So this, I'm not sure if it's on the web yet, but it's really cool if you want a little bit more dashboard real estate. And so let's just use something that's already created, one of the sample workbooks. And then, for example, if you have this line chart here.
Oh, actually, sorry, you're not sharing
Oh,
your screen.
Sorry. Thinks it's sharing, so
So stop sharing.
stop
again.
sharing, reshare.
You might have picked only
Yeah, I
to
think
share Chrome.
Ah, you're right. Thank you.
We just share everything.
It's out. Yeah. Oh, no. Sure, that works too.
There we go.
Great. Okay, so this is just world indicators, which is one of the sample workbooks. And then if, for example, right now I have measure names on color, and I can also put measure names, which is right here. I can also put it on label. So now each one is labeled. That might not be what you want, but you can go into here and say match mark color. So now you can see that your labels on the viz change based on your mark color, and so you don't really need this legend anymore if you don't want. And so I think that's a really cool way to explain your graph a little in a different way.
Awesome. Cool. That was a really good one.
One of my favorite features with formatting is the new theme that my teammates worked very hard on last year for Tableau 10.0. If you have older workbooks that you created with Tableau 9 or earlier, I can show you how to do this. So this is using the new theme, but to work backwards, if you go to Format and then Workbook Theme, the previous version used a different color scheme and different fonts as well. This particular one has been overridden, so you don't see the difference in colors, but you can see that there's a difference in the fonts that are used. We commissioned our very own font in Tableau that's optimized for data visualization, and so things like numbers and measures really pop out a lot better. And really, in one click, you get more spacing, you get better fonts, you get more visible, striking colors that our expert color designers have done, and you can do that all from just one menu. So before you start changing the minutia of your formats, try upgrading the theme of some older workbooks, and you might like what you see.
Beautiful by default.
Beautiful by default, we call it.
I really like the work we've done on our workbook level formatting for lines and fonts. Okay. Lines is our most recent addition. And an example is, and it's in this button section down here, which you can expand. An example would be changing the grid lines on this view. We can make them, this is not the prettiest, but we can make them red.
And that applies across the entire workbook.
Yes, and you can change the opacity so that colors of items like that. And then we've got different types of lines. And so we set the defaults. This is very useful because you can do all your sheets and dashboards at once.
You know, my favorite feature, I think, is also this. I've seen many customers who have specific colors that they need to use for their workbooks because that's the company standard, company design standard. And the fact that you can use a specific font or a specific color for a font and change it for all of the text inside your workbook from here is really, really helpful, I think. So this would be something that many people had to do before, but they would have to go through every item individually and update the font color and the font style. So I think that's why this one is my favorite feature, because it does save a lot of customers that I've talked to a lot of time in meeting their design guidelines.
My favorite is what we're working on right now, which is getting expressive text in more places and providing more functionality. Sorry, we can't demo anything today, and we do need your feedback to make sure that we're on the right track. But basically, I'm excited about what we're working on and what we're planning to deliver. I think this is going to be amazing.
Yeah, I mean, I love everything that everyone said, but probably the thing that just tickles me the most is all of our new color palettes. Because they're just, I watch them be designed and they're just so pretty, and they're made for visual like differentiation. And so I love that we now are better able to help colorblind people, and that we just have really fun new colors that we can put out there. And wow, this one's not the best color palette. But there we go. We can change that. And just, it brightens things up when you change the color palette, and it allows you to expand upon our themes and make something a little bit more yours, even if you don't have the best eye for color or know the best way to have a bunch of colors in your viz that are visually different enough that you can tell your data apart.
And a lot of research went into the selection of those colors.
Yes.
And it really is a remarkable difference from our defaults or our color palettes in previous releases.
Yeah, we had color experts looking at these colors and doing all sorts of analysis to make sure that they are really the ones that pop the most and make it easy for users to see what's important.
Another upgrade with color palettes that came in Tableau 10.0 is that we actually save your color palette now. So as you get new data, if you already assigned your color palette, it will actually be using the color palette, whereas before we were always just using the default. So that just makes your experience a little bit seamless and easier, and you don't have to think about it as much, which is nice.
So one question that we got is it possible to create a fill color feature in Tableau? So let's assume that there are 4 words in a sentence in the text box. The user would like to change the background color of one particular word in a blue shade and the remaining 3 words in a different background color.
So background text color is something that we are looking at, and we hope to be working on it at some point in the future. So thank you for the feedback, because this makes us realize that that is an important feature. So definitely on our radar, we don't have an ETF on that one yet either, but we're looking at it for sure.
We have another question about color specifically, but that's not what your team doesn't.
We are.
Oh, you are color.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry. So in terms of color palettes, Ben has figured out how to make a custom palette when he brings it into desktop and hover over the color. It shows light brown or orange when he has several shades. Is there a way to name them or show the specific hex value when selecting a color?
That's a really good question. We don't have that right now, but I can totally see the usefulness of this. So we are taking notes, and we'll definitely make sure that this is something we consider for the future. Thank you so much for that feedback.
So one of the other things that came up in the thread was the ability to use CSS for some of the formatting. I think Simon Runk was the person who brought it up, and he's on the call today. So I'd love to hear what your feedback was or what you thought about.
Yeah, so CSS-like formatting capabilities is definitely something that we have had many conversations with our customer group before, and something that we continue to think about. We don't have a plan for this right now for the next 6 months timeline, but it's definitely one of those things that keep on coming up, and we do see the value of being able to say all of these texts, which are one type of text, should follow a certain style. So we see the value in that. Definitely something we want to keep in our mind, but we don't have any concrete plans for it yet. Do you guys have anything to add to that?
Just to note that there's a couple of other factors here. One is security will definitely be an issue that we will have to consider, and that's one of the things that's held us back a little bit. And the other is this is actually going to be perhaps a little harder to implement than you might think. And so this is something that we have to weigh the cost benefit. So I love the idea myself. I love the ability to customize in that way using tools that designers already know how to use. But I want to be very, very careful how we do that. So this will be something that is a little bit tricky.
Well, when you say it's difficult to implement, do you mean like from a usability standpoint, if for people who aren't familiar with CSS?
A little both. Debugging, for example. So any web designer will tell you the same thing, that your CSS rules need to be very, very carefully laid out. And when you look at something, you don't necessarily realize that this rule applied here, and that's why this one turned red, and then trying to figure out which CSS rule actually did that can be somewhat problematic. So in addition to providing support for CSS, we also need to provide support for debugging those rules and which one controlled on which element and how to make all of those work.
Did we hear back from Tyler about the dimension versus measure?
He said that he is unable to think of a good way to articulate what he wants.
Okay.
But maybe we can follow up on the thread, Tyler, if you think of a way to articulate it, or maybe even jump on a call or something at a later point.
Yeah, would love to. If you could just share with us the exact use case you're thinking of, we'd be very, very happy to chat about that more.
Another question that came up was for when you're formatting custom numbers, they'd love to be able to see a preview before they actually have to press it live to help save a little bit of time. Has that been something that you've ever considered?
So that's actually a really, really good idea. We were talking about this earlier this morning, and we really liked the idea. So this was not one of the top things that we were going to focus on in the next 6-month time frame, but we like it enough that we're going to take a look and see if it makes sense to invest in that at some point in the future. I don't have an ETA at this point, but definitely we like the idea. We'll investigate and see.
One thing that came up, and I actually run into this too myself, is when there's a title on my filter, adjusting the size of the filter box so that you can still get the title and still get the content of whatever is in your dropdown or in your filter. And so I think that's just a bit of feedback about changing the size or changing the height. I don't know if you have something to talk specifically about that.
So this issue that it's manual, or that
I think that it
difficult?
can truncate the title.
I think you'll have to wrap text on that, so that it'll go to a new line to see everything. I could be wrong.
Are you okay?
Wrap text, so that it, instead of truncating, we make it taller, and then the text continues on the next line. I've seen that come up in some of the forums, people asking for that for titles.
It does come up, and then another option would be to automatically resize it. So there are a few things that we could do here, and we are aware that there's a need here. So at some point in the future, we're not actively working on this particular thing right now.
What about being able to cut and paste something from, like, say, Word or something else, and being able to keep, or maybe like an email or something, keep the bolded or italicized words is seems to that at all?
That's a really good question. So with the web text editing feature that we previewed in the beginning of this call, we are trying to keep and process as much of the formatting as possible from other applications like email or Word. So there are some technical issues that prevents, in some cases, from us bringing that formatting over, but in most cases, we are trying to preserve it. Do you guys, Dev, want to add any color to, like, the technical issues?
Word is definitely getting better than it used to be. A few years ago, for example, copy and paste from Word was a nightmare because they didn't follow any kind of web standards. That has been changing, and so we actually are able to preserve some of that formatting content. The problem there is every application does it a little bit differently. It's something we definitely will work on. I guarantee you we're never going to get to 100%. But we definitely, this is something we at least want to get the basics, the bold, italic, underline. We'll try to do tables. I can't offer any guarantees, but it's definitely something we're actively working on now.
Yeah, colors, font. So we definitely, this is important. We understand people need this. So if you, when the 17Q3 beta goes out, if you see any issues with copy paste, please let us know, because this feature is going to be available in the next beta.
Simon, I think, just sent us maybe a picture of an example of where the filter was
I can open it up. Is it in the chat?
I don't see it, so I'm not sure. What about spell check? Oh yeah, he says he can't send a picture in this. Maybe you can add the picture to the thread, Simon, when you get a chance.
So spell check for text editing is definitely something that we have looked at. We don't have an ETA for that yet, but we do realize that there's a need for it. Like when I type, I'm always mistyping words. I personally really appreciate spell check. There are some considerations with it, like security and such, because we'll have to be calling some service that does the spell check for us. There's also language considerations because Tableau ships in multiple languages. So it's a pretty involved project. We're definitely looking at it. It's something that our team has already done some investigations on, but we don't have any concrete timeline for this yet because of the complexities I mentioned related to language and having to call another service to make sure that the words are correct. Paul, did you want to?
Yeah, a developer on my team did a quick hackathon proof of concept project on this and actually did hook up a third-party spell checker. That particular spell checker does have some concerns that Rubaiyat raised, that this was actually being done by sending data to a remote server and then getting the results back. That has security ramifications and privacy considerations for our customers. It was great from a proof of concept subject, and we actually can plug in pretty quickly. It's a matter of really picking the right technology and the right application. But definitely on our radar and definitely something we want to do.
Let's see, what else have we got here? See. Are there any other questions on the phone? Oh, here we go. So this is a totally different topic, but is there a way to control text alignment on text tables? In the GDP chart you just had us, is there a way to control where the label is placed above or below? And sometimes the labels appear above the lines or shapes. Can you control across a specific sheet or even specific data points that are problematic?
I don't know of a way to do that, but
If you click on the label shelf on the marks card, and
oh, right here, exactly. So there's some.
No, there's also just alignment as a drop down. I don't know if that's exactly what you want.
yeah, and then there's some options. They don't work under all circumstances.
I believe this applies to every label, though, so you won't be able to find a problematic label and change just that, right?
Right, this is for all labels on the viz.
Yeah, the reason why we don't give such fine tuning is because when you create this visualization, we can't predict what size it's going to be on a particular display. Whereas
if your data changes.
Yeah, and if your underlying data changes, then any overrides would not be applied. So keep that in mind as you design a visualization as well, that as you view it on a different size screen, perhaps on a tablet or a phone, there are different considerations to be made about where the labels go. And we have built algorithms to, ideally place these labels in a place where they don't conflict either with each other or with the marks or lines on your viz. But that said, we appreciate all feedback if our algorithm is not meeting the expectations you have for it.
Am I thinking of annotations only then, that you can move the specific label?
You can move annotations.
Wherever?
Yeah, annotations can be moved around, and they also, depending on the type of annotation, will move to match changes in data.
So a point annotation, for example, will follow the point if the point changes.
Gotcha. Let's see what other questions we have here. Have we ever thought about spacing individual items in a horizontal color legend so that you can space, so you don't have to space based on like the longest label in terms like of number of letters in that label, and instead be able to space appropriately on that legend if it's like a shorter, if each dimension member is a different length of word.
Are we talking about
I'm assuming you're talking about the legend there?
Yes.
And like you might have one that's like incredibly long, one that's incredibly short.
Yep.
Is the idea here to wrap or provide some functionality to edit in such a way that it better presents itself? I'm not quite sure what's being asked.
I think that what they want to do is be able to space it for, so maybe the longer word is a little bit more tightly condensed.
Oh,
than the
yeah.
other word.
so the space between the different letters?
So let's just demo what I think we all think you're saying to make sure. So let's say you have this color legend and you make it a single row and then you move it here, takes up lots of space. And I say, wow, I have a ton of white space here. Let me make it smaller. And like now it made both of them smaller. But really, especially when you have lots of different colors, you want to be able to adjust each one.
Right.
Right, that kind of thing.
So is it for the single row situation or?
Yeah, so it's exactly what she's talking about.
Okay, great. Good feedback. I don't believe this is something that we had, we were actively working on, but I can definitely see the need here. Yeah, thank you for.
So a question from Simon, and he says he's not sure if this is the right team, but what about the automatic units on numbers on a chart axis? So in the on-screen example, the units are in billions of dollars, but if I filter this, say to a region, I might want it to be millions of dollars and so on. Are there any plans to control how the user can, or are there any plans to allow us to control this?
So what I'm understanding, Simon, is that you would want some sort of control where you say, if region is all, show this unit. If a specific value is selected from the region filter, then show this particular other unit, right? Which is usually probably going to be smaller. At this time, we weren't, this wasn't a top feature request, but it's really interesting to hear the use case. Do you see this as something that's really high priority for you? Do you run into this situation a lot? I would love to understand the impact of this a little bit more.
And since I'm taking notes, just to make sure I understand this. So the idea here is you would like to control units potentially on a per region basis. So if I'm looking at everything, I might say units in billions, because if I do units in thousands, it doesn't make sense. But if I drill in onto just a community or a state or something, a smaller region, I might want to automatically say, no, billions doesn't make any sense because now my data is too small. Is that basically the?
Yes, but I don't know if Simon wanted automatic or he wanted user control.
Ah, okay.
So I think what I heard was Simon would like more control of it. So he wants to define what unit should be used.
Okay.
So actually, I think it is worth considering both, right?
Okay.
If we can do intelligent assigning of units, that might be even more helpful.
Yeah, he is saying user control.
User control.
Okay.
A separate drop down. Where you
Yeah.
can just, and then if you want, you can just change it from billions to millions to thousands.
Right. Or some other UI possibly where you just associate a level with a level of region with a unit. Simon, thank you. That's a really interesting use case. We appreciate it. Did we hear about how common this use case is for Simon?
He hasn't responded yet, but he said, yes, if it's intelligent, he's always happy to do less work.
There are a few threads on the community about it, so it seems like Simon is in good company of people who have run into this. There are also a few workarounds, but it's always better when, Tableau comes up with something that's very easy and built in.
Okay. But do we make an attempt to do it already using automatic? Or do we just?
I would think so.
I think maybe we should improve that.
We do. There are also business needs where, some places may insist on 1,000 millions as opposed to reporting everything to strictly the most restrictive suffix.
Yeah, we have noted it down. Paul has been kindly taking notes, so we will definitely look at this.
So is there a way to have a different number format for the axis and tooltip? For example, I typically prefer my axis to have no decimal points, but when I modified the axis, it will also change the format on the tooltip. My current workaround is to duplicate the measure and put that in the tooltip instead.
Yeah, we don't think there is a way to do that today, axis versus tooltip. Definitely an interesting use case, for sure. We'll take a look and see whether it makes sense to investigate this. Definitely sounds useful, so thank you for the feedback.
See here.
The axis and header can be separated. Yeah, I think that's what before.
Oh, Simon followed up. He says he thinks it's pretty common.
Okay.
It's just that final polish that really helps give clients the confidence in their attention to detail. So people are used to seeing handcrafted, bespoke-built applications. So query why we find it hard for us to control this. He says it's not a deal breaker, but people expect perfection.
Yeah, thank you, Simon. We totally see where you're coming from.
Seems like our questions have slowed down a little bit. Is there anything else that you guys really wanted to get feedback on that we wanted to ask the crowd?
We already talked a little bit about non-text editing features. So if the crowd is willing, we'd love to hear anything and everything to do with formatting at this point, since we have a little bit of time left.
Yeah.
So feel free to talk about, old features that haven't been touched in a while, or any pet peeves or anything that you love.
Yeah.
We like to hear that too.
Is there an area of formatting that when you were learning Tableau or introducing it to others in your organization that you find either hard to explain or counterintuitive that we might improve by simplifying or by better explaining?
As we wait for people to type in. Another one that is kind of similar. So the dashboard object, so using just like a blank space and being able to control the color or transparency of it. Are you able to do transparent?
So the dashboard team is working on some of the spacing and coloring and background features. So there will be some improvements in this in the future. I can't speak to the exact timeline of it. I added Phil Naranjo to the community thread because there were some questions around it. He's the best person to ask. So please feel free to either reach out to him directly or post in our community thread, and Phil is aware and he is checking with her to make sure he gets to answer all of these dashboard spacing, background related questions.
So similar to the question you just asked, Jason, maybe my question for you is, how do you, as the people who are, building out formatting, when someone's just getting started with Tableau, what's the best way that you tell them to learn how they can format their workbooks in a way that makes sense to them?
Well, this is a good cross-promotion for the talk that I'll be giving at TC17 about formatting made fast, easy, and beautiful. This is something that we've been talking about because we had a formatting talk that Shahaf and one of our other colleagues, Huang Ming, gave last year at TC16 that was very well received. When you think about formatting, Tableau gives options at multiple levels, and we recommend starting with the broadest level, which is formatting the entire workbook. That's why we give the themes. That's why we have facilities for setting workbook formatting and setting things like annotations globally. So setting up a basic style will save you time in the long run. And then you can also make modifications at a worksheet on a measure level, and then on a very small level, like modifying individual lines or legends. So really, it's about trying to think about the big picture first, because that will save you the most amount of time. and then working your way inward to make fine tuning. But if everybody here has done their job well, you shouldn't have to make too much fine tuning to get a visualization that looks and works well.
We have some, our technical writer, Ellen, has written some really good documentation around this as well. So our online help does have all of the tips that Jason just shared, you know, work broadly first, then go more specific. So there's some guidelines out there.
And what a fun way to learn about formatting is to find a really good workbook that you like, it's really complex, and try and copy it from scratch.
Yeah.
Can be much more, it can be a little harder than you.
So a follow-up question to the access and pane. So which order do we need to set access and pane number formatting? Sometimes it works, sometimes it seems pane inherits from access.
It might be more, we had a concrete example that might be slightly more helpful. Let's see, I'm gonna.
Of these two tabs. Yes.
Yeah, I think.
Are we sharing, by the way?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, so I'm just trying to figure out like.
So then put up the context menu for an axis.
Pull up the context.
Oh, you need a numerical axis.
Okay. So.
Yeah, on the dates there. Format. Yeah. And yeah. Oh, that's a different one.
If we do a bar chart.
Yeah, bar chart work.
Is that a bar chart?
It's not. Sorry. So are we talking about these two?
Yes, I believe so.
And what is the goal?
I think the goal is to have the formatting be the same across.
And to better understand the hierarchy, which one controls under which circumstances?
Yes.
Okay. So like, which is the global, which is which one dominates? In any given number, which one is the one that's going to control that?
Yeah, I can definitely see that it is a little confusing by looking at this. It's not very clear which one goes where. We can definitely do something to improve the user experience here. One of the things that we have talked about in the past is, what if we showed you like a preview of what is changing when you change something? So I think that kind of feature might be very helpful here. So depending on the exact use case, I'm not sure exactly how to answer which one wins out, because it depends on what it is that you're changing. Do you guys have a better way of explaining this?
So I think it depends on the visualization, which is why it's so confusing. And I don't remember the exact rules off the top of my head, but I think the way that access inherits from pane, or goes, which one overrides first, or if they're even related at all, is dependent on the visualization, which is why
This type, right? Like
the type, like bar,
line versus
exactly. So it's not as consistent as you would like, and it sounds like you want more consistency, which makes sense.
At which point, I think anything that we can do to make the user experience better, so that the user can know exactly what is changing, will help. That is definitely something that we talk about a lot.
And it sounds like two things. One is somehow demonstrating that in the UI better.
Right.
And the other is documenting those rules.
That's true. We can document the rules.
When you're doing this kind of visualization, this is what controls.
And in addition to like actually showing in the UI, in the div, we could also make it clear on this pane what inherits from what, right? So there are multiple UX improvements that we could look at.
Okay.
So this is something we know folks struggle with. Like even right now, we weren't able to fully articulate what exactly dominates.
I know, that's embarrassing.
A lot of the times, what I end up doing is, trying, because like Shahaf said, it depends. Varies from this to this. It's hard to remember exactly. So
I actually like being embarrassed though, because when I'm embarrassed, that means that I need to go take another look at it. So thank you.
It's a tough balance between giving people a whole bunch of information that might be really confusing and trying to just give people really good defaults
Yeah.
so that it just works for them and they don't have to think about it. That's always it's a challenge.
Yep. Really good question. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if this falls to your team, so if it's not, you can. But in terms of formatting unique shapes, we have made maps for clients using lat long and custom shapes, for example, So for example, specific logos by location. Can you describe how the shapes are sized and placed? I'm struggling to make all the shapes appear to be the same size, even though the PNG that I add is the same size. So maybe understanding how they work will help.
If you could post this in the forum, I will link the right PM. This likely belongs to the maps team, so I'd be very happy to just add our maps PM Kent to the thread. Unfortunately, I do not have expertise on this. We don't work on.
And I think his question is more about bringing in a PNG, like bringing in a picture. And so
related to location, right?
I think that was just his example as I was reading through it. I think it was more about he'll bring in the same size PNG, and when he brings it out onto his dashboard or whatever, they don't seem to be the same size. So
They should be the same size for the same data, if the data is the same.
Is it possible to share an example workbook, maybe without any sensitive data with this? Because I think I'm having a little bit of a difficulty understanding what exactly was done to the shapes. We can definitely take a look at that if you share with us, if possible, a workbook, if not possible, a screenshot of.
yeah. And I'll send, then maybe we can connect offline and you can share that with us if you're not able to share in the community thread.
Yeah.
So, then, the cell size in the format window menu also affects the shape size. That's just from.
Okay.
Okay.
Nice. I love it when they answer that kind of questions for us. We'll just step aside and let our customer experts answer.
And this is maybe just some more feedback for you guys. They're also following up on the access versus pane and tooltip even. Neural says, I personally prefer tooltips to follow formatting of the pane instead of access.
Okay, good to know.
Okay. Well, I think that we are done with questions. I'll give it another minute or two to see if anyone pops anything else in. But anything else anybody wants to add?
Thank you for being so helpful and always being so open to answering our questions and for giving us feedback. We really appreciate it. Even if we can't get to something because we're working on something else, we really, really do value all of the feedback that we get. It does help us figure out the best way to provide high return on investment to you guys. So thank you for taking the time now and for all of the involvement that you do in the community. We really appreciate it.
Awesome. Well, with that, I think we'll call it a wrap. Thank you guys, and thank you everyone on the call. And like I said, I'll be posting this later, probably today or tomorrow. Thank you.
Bye.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks. Bye.
Okay.